All right, everybody. Well, good morning. Welcome to our Habits of Health study. I'm Julie Baker, certified health coach with Take Shape for Life. And today we're going to be going over chapter 21 in Dr. Anderson's Habits of Health book and lesson 17 in the Living a Longer, Healthier Life. It's the workbook version. So I'm really excited about this lesson today because we are going to be talking about stress. And that is a big issue for a lot of people. Stress affects all of us, and a lot of times it really affects our health. And so we're just going to dig into creating a life of well-being. That's the title of lesson 17. Work, play, and live in the ways that support the ideals that matter most to you. And one of the big questions in this chapter and workbook is, are you organizing your life around what matters most to you? And that's a big loaded question for most people because a lot of times we're not, or a lot of times we feel like we can't for various reasons. And so I think a good place to start is to find out what matters most to you. What is the most important thing in your life? And trying to figure out how you can make your life conducive to what is important to you. So, there's a lot of different parts of this, but there's a lot of writing. So if you don't have a pen, get a pen out because all of this is very individual to you. So everybody's not going to have the same answer. So you're going to need to write in there what matters most to you. One of the biggest quotes that I felt like is so important, it's in the book and the workbook, and it's by Dr. A. It says, if an individual is not on purpose in their lives, or it's worded this way, if someone is lacking a true sense of purpose in their life, creating health is an uphill battle. And I could not agree more with that statement. If someone is lacking purpose or really just trying to figure out life in general, it's hard to focus on your health because there's so many other circumstances that are going on right now in your life that it makes it hard to focus on that. So I think that's just a really important quote. And then if you turn the page in your workbook, page 128 said, what is purpose? If they're lacking purpose in their life, or maybe you're lacking purpose in your life, what is purpose? Gives the definition, and it is the reason for which something exists or is done, made, or used, an intended or desired result, an end or a goal, determination, resoluteness, the subject in hand, the point at issue, practical result, effect, or advantage. And there's a lot of other things too, but purpose is to know why you are here and to have something that you are passionate about, that you're aiming towards in life, that you have an end goal. And so it just kind of talks about what your purpose in life is and how to create well-being in your life and take the stress out of your life. So in the book, it talks about, do you know what really matters to you? And it says, sadly, many of us don't know. You know, we look to the internet or TV or to celebrities or whatever to see what they're doing, or maybe even just someone close to us, what they're doing. And each one of us is individual and special, and we have different areas of things of interest, of passion, all of those things. So it's not something that we can just look to somebody else and get their answer and take their answer. It's going to be very specific to us. It talks about if you could live your life over again, what would you do differently? 3 universal truths have emerged. They would have paid more attention to the big picture. They spent so much time being busy that time just passes them by. They would have taken more risks and been better friends, parents, sons, and daughters. And they would have left a legacy. They wish that they would have made more of a difference. People that, when they look back on their life, things that they wish that they would have done. Nobody's ever going to say, I really wish that I, had a better car, or that I, watched more movies or whatever. It's about the memories. It's about the impact that you make on your family and friends. And I love how Dr. A shares about his story. So if you haven't read this part in the book, it's about 1.5 pages, but I really encourage you to read it because you learn more about Dr. A himself and his life of purpose. The Cliff Notes version is that he used to be a surgeon, and he started out really loving it and really loving helping people. And he just got into the grind of craziness. Of course, still helping people, but working crazy hours, not getting enough sleep, not seeing his family, and really started to regret what he was doing when in fact he was helping people, but with the schedule and the stress level, I can only imagine he was trying to save people from dying. You know, they came to see him on their deathbed. So just all those things combined made it to where it was not what he was looking for. He was not enjoying life anymore. And so he talks about, he left his practice behind. He picked up everything and moved across the country, and he had little kids at the time. He has 2 daughters, and they were very small at the time. And basically, you know, his passion was still to help people, but to help people before they got to the point where they were at their deathbed. What could we do to start solving this problem before then with people's health? And, you know, he talks about it was hard for a while. They lived on credit cards, and they did whatever they had to do, but he was looking for his purpose in life. And I love hearing that because, you know, he says for a while we made no money. We lived in a small rented house. No one was there to help. His family and friends thought he was crazy because he gave up his practice. And he just says it was a much simpler life, but he was able to enjoy the time with his family and his kids. And he found, you know, if you read a little bit earlier in the book as well, he decided to partner with Medifast, create Take Shape for Life and the coaching arm of that. And now he's living his dream. You know, he even says, I'm able to live on the water now. That was one thing that he really wanted, was to live on the water. And obviously they do well financially now, but, you know, don't despise small beginnings if you start slow. I'm sure he had no idea where this would take him, but his overall goal was to eliminate the stress in his life. Even though he did love helping people, he wanted to find another way to do that was going to allow him to organize his life around what mattered most. And what mattered most to him was not money and living on the water and all of those great things. It was spending time with his family and being able to be there for the things that were important. And he was able to do all of those things when he found his purpose. And there's a really good quote on page 267 in the book. It's about 3/4 of the way down. It said, if we can discover what really matters to us and find a way to bring our needs for both success and fulfillment into alignment, we can elevate ourselves to lives full of order and purpose. And as an immediate benefit, when our minds and hearts are in alignment this way, our stress begins to vanish. So I am sure that everybody who's watching today, listening, or will watch this into the future has dealt with stress in your life at one time or another. Maybe you're not super stressed right now, which is great. But if you're not, then you've been there. There have been crazy times in your life, whether it's family issues or marriage issues or financial issues, emotional issues. There's always something that is trying to come at us from all angles. So I think it goes right alongside with our health journey. You know, that's what we've been talking about. This whole study is our health journey. And we've learned so much about how to do that. But I think sometimes we forget that, you know, there's a lot of other factors involved, and stress is a big one. And probably most people are stress eaters, right? Yes, me. I don't know a person who's not a stress eater. When one of my clients says I'm a stress eater, I'm like, yeah, well, welcome to the club. That's everybody, because that's one of those triggers that, you know, when life is hard and we're really feeling it, we go to food. That's a habit. You know, that's just a bad habit that we have to break and hopefully replace with something else. And I know for me, something that helps when I'm stressed and really just able to not eat, but replace that habit with another habit. And actually, I learned a lot of this stuff from behavioral support. If you call our nutrition support and ask for a behavior specialist, they will walk through some of these things with you. And I have learned a lot from them. You know, if you talk to them about stress eating, they'll say, okay, what happens when you get stressed? What time of day does it happen? What are some habits that we can do to replace eating? And, they'll say, what do you like to do that is relaxing to you, that is not stressful to you? Just even suggestions like taking a bath, something that is going to relax you and you're not thinking about food, or maybe you like to get outside. Maybe it's just taking a walk or going out to look at the stars or something, anything that's going to take your mind off of eating. I have an adult coloring book. I love those. And for me, that's a stress reliever, and I love them. I've always loved to color ever since I was a kid. So that's something that if I'm stressed, it's a good distraction. Some people like to do like crossword puzzles or brain teasers, like things like that if they're feeling particularly stressed, that's kind of a go-to for them, that will kind of help relax. Or maybe it's just something that you love to do. Go spend time with a friend. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later, about how we can take stress out of our lives, because we know some of it is inevitable and it's going to happen, but it really is going to be how we deal with it is how it's going to affect our health in the long run. But on your workbook, on page 129, we're going to talk about the fulfillment continuum. And there's a little chart there. And it talks about your level of fulfillment is an internal measure of how you're feeling in your very being. Are you joyful? Is your life full of meaning? Or are you just going through each day like a hamster on a wheel? Get up, go to work, come home, go to sleep. Get up, go to work, go home, go to sleep. And unfortunately, that is, I feel like now, most people fall into that category. It's like the grind, and it gets old, right? And it gets harder. It makes life harder so many times. So we're going to figure out where you are on this chart. So at the top is fulfillment. At the bottom is depression. And it says to figure out where you were 1 year ago with a circle. So this is overall in your life. Make a circle at the spot of where you were a year ago. From -10, zeros in the middle, to a full 10 is for complete fulfillment in all areas of your life. I don't think anybody is up there. But where were you a year ago? Just think back, May 2015, where were you in your life? And make a circle on the chart. And then think about where you are right now and put a star of where you are on the chart. And then it asks you to draw a line, whether it's up or down, as to where from the circle to the star. What direction is it? Hopefully it's up. It might be down. But you just want to see where it is. And then it says, this is going to give you an idea of where your projected path is going if you keep doing what you're doing. If you've really, I know most of you on here have made a change in your health. You're on your health journey. That's a great thing, and that's exciting. So hopefully that's going to help that arrow point up, because you're making improvements in your life. And that's what it says. If you keep doing the things that you're doing now, where will you be in 1, 3, or 5 years from now? And it just kind of gives you a projection of where your life is headed. And I think that is really an eye-opening thing for a lot of people, just to see, okay, am I happy with my life right now? If I'm not, I need to make a change. And what is that change going to be? That might be a small change. Maybe it's your daily routine. You just need to change some things. Maybe it's your commitments in your life. Maybe you need to say no to more things, or maybe there's some things that you need to say yes to in your life. Or it might be for you, maybe you're not feeling fulfilled at your job. Maybe it's time for a big change. Maybe it's time for you to think about your purpose and what you're really doing. So I think this chart can be really important, and hopefully everybody is kind of moving up. But on the next page, it has us, on page 130, it says, I want to be, and then it gives you a lot of space. So I want you guys to take a few minutes and fill that in with what you want. What do you want in life? This doesn't necessarily have to be health related, can be anything. If you want to learn how to cook better, awesome. Write that down. Or you want to learn how to sew, or any hobby. It can be anything. So write down a couple things. His examples are, I want to be healthy, or I want to be at peace with myself. Maybe it's, I want to have less stress in my life. Take a few minutes and write some things down that you want to be. Okay, then the next part of that, if you're not done, that's okay. You can watch this back later and press pause. The next part is our secondary choices are, I'm going to create fulfillment by, and how are you going to get to those places? What are you going to do that supports those? So for instance, if it says, if I want to be healthy is one of your things, what are you going to do to be healthy? And they can be very specific things. I'm going to continue on the 5-in-1 program, or I'm going to start working out, or very specific things so that you know, not just, I'm going to make good choices every day, which is great and you should, but that doesn't give you a specific thing to be doing. So take a minute and write down the ways that you're going to get to the things that you wrote down on the first box. Okay. And then there's the structural tension chart on the opposite page, page 131. And that's pretty much what you just did. Maybe when you get done, or when you have a little bit of time, you want to transfer the things that you wrote down on this other page over here. And it actually has a timeline. You know, it has these secondary choices of when you're going to do those things. You know, if it's, I'm going to continue on the 5-in-1, how long are you going to do that for? You know, it might not necessarily be a date. It might be until you reach a specific goal. But it's good to go down and write specifically what it is. You know, maybe it's, I want to spend more time with my kids. Well, the timeline, it can be right now. I'm going to start doing that today. Write that down. Or every Tuesday or whatever, I'm going to go do this thing. Or I'm going to go to lunch with my friend. Or very specific things, because you're writing down your current reality and how you're going to get to your fulfillment, the things that you want to do. And if you haven't really talked about, or you're not familiar with the structural tension chart, go back to chapters 2 and 3 and either rewatch that Zoom or go through and read those books in Habits of Health, and they're going to help you understand what a structural tension chart is and how you can make one of those charts work for anything. Any area of your life, it is a very beneficial tool that we have that's going to help you get there. But another thing that kind of goes hand in hand with the structural tension chart is in your book. It has page 268. He has what he calls like the health quadrant. And he wants us to figure out where we fall in this quadrant. So he talks about fulfillment at the top, depression at the bottom, the same thing that we did on the other page. But then it also has horizontally failure and success. And when you look on page 269, they kind of all go together, and they create 4 separate quadrants. And it's interesting how this works. I've seen this chart in various forms before, and I'm sure you probably have too. But so it has a thriving category, fulfilled and successful, and that is kind of between the fulfillment and success markers. But then it has worn out, and that's between success and depression. And you're successful at what you do, but maybe you're depressed, so you're not feeling fulfilled about those things. The next one is burned out. That's between failure and depression. You're just done. You are over it. You are depressed and you're failing. It's gotten to a point where you're not even, succeeding in what you're doing anymore because it's just too much and you're over it. And then the last one is between failure and fulfillment. Contented, you're fulfilled, but you're not successful with what you're doing. So you take some self-examination time and figure out what quadrant your life falls into right now. Now, I really think that every time you reassess, it might be in a different place. And so it's important to make change as necessary. And he even says that a habit of health is having the flexibility to recognize when change needs to happen and how to adjust accordingly. You're going to need to evaluate your life at every season. There's a lot of seasons. Sometimes it might be month to month. Sometimes it might be year to year. But it's important to go back and always be evaluating. It is a habit of health, especially for our healthy mind, to be able to realize when something isn't working. If it's not working, I need to make a change. What change is that going to be? Maybe it's a little change, maybe it's a big change, but what does that change need to be? And to adjust accordingly, because that's just part of our overall well-being, is that we're constantly changing. Our lives are evolving, things are happening, and we just need to be aware. And sometimes we are the most least aware of our own lives. Sometimes it's the people around us that love us that can say, what are you doing? And it's important to have that voice in your life. Maybe it's your spouse, or maybe it's a friend, a mentor who can say, let's talk about that. Maybe that's not the best thing for right now. Or maybe you need to scale back on commitments or whatever. It's important to have that person or people in your life that have that outside perspective. We sometimes get so stuck in our head and our daily things that we're doing that we don't see the big perspective. And that's, one of the things that we talked about is I wish I would have, people looking back, I wish I would have seen the bigger picture more. It's hard for us to see the bigger picture. We're not really skilled at that, but other people can. And so make sure that you have one or two of those people in your life that can help you with those things. It's going to make a big difference. So which quadrant would you say that you're in right now? Maybe circle it in your book, write a date. You hopefully will utilize this book a lot in your future as well. And sometimes it's good to know where we're at right now. But if you turn the page on page 270, he fills out his well-being chart all the way from 1986 to 2008, which I think was when this book was published. So you can see he was in every quadrant but the failure depression one. Because when he started out, he wasn't married, he was single, he was doing what he loved, what he went to school for, what he was passionate about. But then he did that for a couple years, and then he realized he was really stressed and he was missing his family. He got married, had little kids, realized maybe this was a point in his life when he needed to switch things up. The next year, he decided to create a health company, lots of time with family, but he's in that quadrant because he was living on credit. So he was not making a lot of money, but he was being fulfilled in what he did. And then 7 years later, so it took 7 years, he moved over into the quadrant that he was back in the beginning of living a healthy life, habits of health, lots of time with family, having financial security, thriving. And so I think our lives are probably a big mess of this quadrant at different points in our life. But our goal really is to get back to the top right one, the fulfillment and success one, and adjusting accordingly. But that was over a long period of time for him. So it's not just that instant thing where, okay, I'm going to do this and I'm going to switch quadrants all the way up. Doesn't happen that way. Sometimes it's small things, but creating your first step. So in your book, you can actually mark where you think that you are and write stuff in. I don't know about you, but my Habits of Health book has stuff written all over it. So this is your book. Feel free to write in it as much as you need to. And he even asks, where are you on a scale of 1 to 10? And I think as he goes on to talk about it, he said this process is difficult and a lot of people skip over it or avoid it because they just don't want to think about it, or maybe they're not in the quadrant that they want to be in. So it's an uncomfortable process. You know, I think a lot of times it makes us face reality, and not everybody wants to do that. Sometimes it's scary to think about, but I think as far as your overall life, your health is a big part of that. But overall, you know, you only get one life. It's it. You know, I mean, Megan Valentine says that all the time. We only get this one life, and we really have to make it count. And we don't want to spend time super stressed and doing the things that we don't feel fulfilled, because chances are we'll look back and regret those times and wish that we would have done something different. And sometimes it's just taking that leap of faith to do something different. It's probably scary, but I know that God has a plan for each one of our lives. And so we just have to listen when he tells us to do things. So take a few minutes. I know we're not going to have a lot of time right now to kind of write all this stuff down. But when you have time, go back and really fill in all of the blanks here, and, you know, mark where you want to be, mark where you are right now. And I filled this entire page up. So, okay, let's turn the page to 272. And there's a story here that I really like about a 45-year-old woman who was very successful, but she was lonely. So she set a 3-month goal of creating companionship. So I think that this story is really interesting. She took her current reality. She was home alone, and it says she lost a large amount of weight on her health journey. She had a home internet business. She was very successful in her business, but her loneliness placed her in the lower right quadrant of the well-being chart. She was worn out. Her first step was to write down her current reality. Then she set a timeline of 3 months. In month 2, she bought a dog, and he gave her immediate companionship, but she also got out and took him for walks. And 6 months later, while walking her dog, she met a wonderful man. She's now 12 months into her relationship, has reached her healthy weight, and has begun to show her dog professionally. I know that that story seems kind of cheesy or whatever, but I think that it was important to her. She didn't want to be alone. She wanted to find someone. And so she actually, instead of, you know, just kind of waiting for something to happen, she didn't say, I'm going to go out and try to meet somebody. She said, I'm going to start with a baby step. I'm going to get a dog. I know that sounds weird, but she wanted companionship. So she got a dog. That led her to actually getting out and exercising more. So that was a great thing. And then she happened to meet somebody. So it's not like she went out to meet somebody. She took some other steps first, and then it happened. So I think it's important that if you have an overall goal and you're not there yet, to know that even taking other action steps can lead to that, even if we don't see it. Even if we don't know that that's how it's going to happen, it's important to do something. And, you know, it says if you find that you want a lot of external things in your life, ask yourself why. Make sure that the reason that's truly aligned with your fundamental aspirations is not just a short-term effort to feel successful at the cost of your long-term goals. So he talks in the book a lot about as well, you know, somebody who had, he wanted a car, he wanted a Porsche, and his boss had one, and he thought he was going to sell it. And he thought, okay, if I can just work more hours and work overtime, then I'll be able to afford it. And it really just depends on what you want. If that's what he wanted so bad was that car, then he was willing to work overtime and do whatever he had to do to get it. That was important to him. But the same person can do that and have a family at home and know that if they work overtime, they're spending less time with their family and less time with their kids. They might have a really great car, but that means that it's at the cost of spending time with your family. So it depends what you want and at what stage in your life you're at. You know, like he said, when he was single, he could do things that he couldn't do later on in life. So it's important to just see where you're at. So back to the workbook on page 132, we have the horizontal version of the failure and success and where you fall on there. And it has us do the same thing. draw a circle for where you were a year from now, as far as being successful or how you feel like you're doing. And then do a star for where you are right now. Draw a line between the two of them. Is it going towards success or is it going towards failure? Because it's your projected path. So if you continue doing what you're doing, this is the direction that you're going to go. If it's not in the direction that you want it to, we got to make a change. And then it has the same thing. I want to have. Now, this does not necessarily mean material things. For us, I want to have a lot of savings. That's one of the things that's on mine. That means I want to be financially secure and have money in the bank just in case. So that isn't necessarily a thing. But it doesn't have to be a material thing, But for us, we were able to buy a house this past year. That is a material thing, but for us, it was a really big deal. We had gone through the nasty short sale and all of that when the real estate market crashed several years back. We went through a really hard time. We lost our home. And so for us, being able to not rent and buy our own home, again, like 7 years later, was a really big deal. So maybe it's something like that for you. But write down some things that you want to have. They can be material things, but they don't have to be. They can be other things as well. And then how you're going to get those things, specifics. Again, I know we're not going to be able to have time to go through every single thing. And you might need to take some time after this is over, sometime this weekend, to just go back over these things and take some quiet time. Okay, so we're also going to talk about, if you turn the page, there's that well-being chart again, and how we beat depression, or how we beat stress in our lives. A lot of times there are things we can do to change that. And I know that even some of our family and friends can cause stress in our lives. So I just want to encourage you. We talked a couple weeks ago about our bio network and how to, obviously we have incredible tools with Take Shape for Life, between Facebook pages and our educational materials and Zooms and all that kind of stuff, to create a good just environment of health in your life. But I also know that there is many factors in our own personal lives. So that might be your family, your spouse, your friends, just people that are in your everyday life. That might be your work. I just try to encourage you to really do what you can to have positive influences in your life. And that might be hard if a family member or someone that you love that's close to you is really negative or not supportive of whether it's your goals or your health journey or anything. So find somebody who is supportive and keep in touch with them. If you have some negative influences in your life, and I know that they can cause stress, family is a big part of stress factors. It is, and they're your family. So you are not just going to cut them out of your life. But I would encourage you to have somebody that you can talk to about those things, and really just try to be a positive influence on their life, and to do what you can, to surround yourself with people that are going to help you reach your goals. And for some people, that might mean that you need to make some new friends. We talked a couple weeks ago, too, about the 5 people that you surround yourself with, your friends. That's who you're going to be in your future. That does not necessarily mean that they have to be living with you or super close to you. Those can be mentors by reading books or listening to Zooms or things like that. So maybe if you feel like I'm kind of stuck where I am and I don't have anybody here that is really supportive of me, they don't necessarily have to be physically there with you. If they can, awesome. But if you're in a situation where that's not something that's happening. That's what the phone is for. That's what Zooms are for. Technology has allowed us to be able to speak into each other's lives from anywhere at any time, and that's what's awesome. Even just that we can all be on this Zoom and be in completely different places is just so cool because we can all support each other. So I want to go through the last little part of the workbook, and that is on page 134. It's following your passion. These are things that are going to help us take stress out of our lives, and this might allow you to see something differently that you haven't seen before. What is your passion? What do you love to do? What is that thing that when you talk about it, that people can tell when they talk to you that you light up when you talk about it? And sometimes people even they'll even say that to you. They'll even go, wow, I can tell that you really, like, you're really into this, or you really love this, or maybe it's something that you're good at. What are you good at? What are your gifts? Write that down under follow your passion, because if you don't know what your passion is, what is the thing that you love to do the most? If you had no job, if you had no responsibilities, and you had enough money to last you forever and ever, what would you do? It would literally be up to you. What would you spend your time doing? What do you love the most? Write that down. And it's going to help you figure out what your passion is if you don't know. Maybe it's for you, maybe you want to take up a hobby. Maybe that's going to help you take some stress out of your life. And like I said, I like those coloring books, but I also love to be outside. Love to be outside. Maybe there's something that you've been thinking that you wanted to do that maybe you just haven't had time for, or you used to do when you were younger, but life's kind of gotten in the way, and you want to get back to doing that. Write that down. Take up a new hobby. What is that new hobby? It doesn't even necessarily have to be, something that you have to be really skilled at. If you enjoy doing it, write it down. That is going to be a stress reliever for you. That's going to help enhance your life. Enjoy the arts. That's something that you just, suggest for people that is something that can be, I love the arts, that will help you have less stress in your life and tap into that creative part of your brain. I know some of you might be thinking, I'm not creative at all. I'm married to someone who thinks he's not creative at all, but he is. So I have to help him, expose him to other things. And he actually really likes them when he does them. So write down some things that you can go do, or, go see a play, go do something different from your regular routine. I think that those things help open our hearts and our minds up to different areas that might have gotten buried along the way. Maybe it's something that you've never done before. If somebody's like, hey, let's go to the ballet, or let's go walk around at an art place, or let's go hiking, or maybe it's something that you don't think is going to be something that you like, but doing something different, out of your comfort zone, totally different, kind of gives you a different perspective on your life. And so I think it's important to do those things every once in a while. Go do something different that you've never done, and bring somebody with you. And explore nature. Yes, I love being outside. And I live in Florida. It's unbelievably hot all the time. So sometimes that's challenging. But my kids love being outside. We all love being outside. And then I really think that there's something healing about being in nature. God created nature. He created all things outside. And so maybe if you're going through a rough time in your life and you just need some healing in your heart, spend time outside. Trust me, God made everything outside. It's very healing for us. So, and explore. Go have fun. Go do something different. Deepen your spirituality, or spend more time with your faith. We're pastors, so obviously this is a huge thing for us, but really taking some time to spend in prayer and just reflection on your life, and, asking God for help. That's what he's there for, to where you want to be, where you need to be, where he wants you to be, and the steps that it's going to take to get there. And, if you're not attending a church regularly, find one, because it's all part of your health journey. It's all, God made our bodies, God made us. And so it's all connected. It's really hard to separate those things, because at some point in time, you're going to realize that they're all the same and that they all work together. So I just encourage you to do that and take some time, some quiet time to just reflect and think. Work towards a good cause or with a charity. These are all things that are going to help you find out what matters most to you. Pour yourself out to others. Go help. It's going to, if you have kids, teach them to help others and to be involved with good causes, whether it's a church or a charity or anything like that, just to give back. That's an important part of it. And also it's going to help relieve stress because you know what? You're helping somebody else. And that's a big stress reliever in our lives is, you know what? If you are feeling depressed or just down or discouraged, you know what the best cure for that is? Go help somebody else. Because what's crazy is you would think that by helping someone else that they would feel all the help and all the love. But what ends up happening is you are the one that are so blessed by giving so much. And it's crazy how that happens. You're like, how do I feel? I feel so incredible by helping someone else. So go do that. If you're struggling in your life, go help someone else. It sounds a little backwards, but trust me, it's really awesome. Spend time with others. Make sure that this is an important part of your life, especially if, you have a job where you're feeling stressed, or maybe the environment just isn't a positive one or what you would like it to be. Make sure that you spend time with people who are going to encourage you and that you can really have conversations with. And it's important. I know sometimes we put this last because we feel like I'm too busy and I have too much going on. And maybe that's when you need to look at your commitments and say, what am I doing that's bearing fruit? We talk about that a lot, but that's bringing forth something good. Are the things that I'm involved in my life, are they bringing forth something good? And even something good might just be, they make me feel awesome. And I feel happy doing this. Then that's a yes. Then keep doing those things. But if you're doing some things in your life that you just feel like, one, you really dread, and two, you just feel like nothing good is really happening from it, do a little bit of self-examination. See if this is something that you need to continue doing. Think about it. Weigh your options. Pray about it. See if that's something that you really need to be involved in. I know at one point in our lives, we were way overcommitted. And we had to sit down and talk about what's most important here, like what's happening. We had to say no to a lot of things during that time in our lives. Our kids were little. It was a stressful time with everything in our lives. We really needed to cut back. And even though some of the things we were doing were really good and we did really like them, they just weren't the most important things at that time in our lives. And that's okay, because we knew that later on we could go back and do those things. There's going to be time later for those things, but for that time, we had little kids and they're only that age for a certain time. And we knew we need to just make some changes. And so I think that that's important. And the quote in here says, just remember to do what you love and love what you do. And that is important. That's important for your well-being, your overall well-being. And the quote, it's the last quote in the book and in the workbook. And it says, the master in the art of living makes little distinction between his work and his play, his labor and his leisure, his mind and his body, his information and his recreation, his love and his religion. He hardly knows which is which. He simply pursues his vision of excellence at whatever it is he's doing, leaving others to decide whether he is working or playing, because to him, he's always doing both. And so that's pretty awesome when you find that point in your life where you're not sure if you're working or playing, because honestly, it feels like you're doing both. That's when you know that you're in that right quadrant. You're feeling fulfilled, you're successful, you're loving what you do, and you can't always distinguish between work and play. How awesome is it that you would do it anyways? And that's what I say. If it's something that you would do anyways, it's what you're supposed to be doing. Whether you get paid or not, you're just going to do it anyways. And so hopefully this chapter and all this information in the workbook was helpful for you. I know it was really great for me. We love what we do, and it's exciting to be at that point in our lives because I worked a lot of jobs. And I actually had a conversation with one of my coworkers yesterday. We used to be in the mortgage business together many, many years ago. And as much as I actually enjoyed checking some of that stuff off my list and the organization part that comes with it, it was a super stressful job. And that's what we were talking about. This was before we had kids or anything. And honestly, we did well. We were successful financially in that business, but the stress level of that business was intense. And maybe some of you, that's where you're at right now. We talked about, would you go back to that? It was an interesting conversation because I knew that we were going to be talking about this. And I said, no, I wouldn't, because for me, it had very high stress. You're dealing with large amounts of money that people are very emotionally attached to, with buying and purchasing homes and things like that. And we would sometimes get calls on the weekend, and it was a job that definitely followed you. It was not a leave your job at the office. It was a job that followed you until it was completely done. And sometimes you worked months for something and it didn't work out, and a loan didn't go through and you didn't get paid. And you might have worked months on that. And the stress level, maybe some of you are in that situation. The stress level was high. And honestly, it was, looking back, I can see that I'm not sure that it was necessarily worth the money at that point in time because of the stress that it had on my life, and at that point in time, my marriage. And I had really just prayed, God, I need an open door to get out of here. Well, fortunately, the economy kind of did that. And, I lost my job because the housing market down here, at least, completely tanked. But for me, it was a way out of that. And I took a different job that was much less stressful, but it probably cut my salary in half. So for us, it was a lot of sacrifice for a while. And then I found out I was pregnant. And so it was a joy to have that. But we made a lot of sacrifices for a while, but I felt like it was worth it for just to be able to have that peace of mind and to be able to spend time with the ones that I loved. And, it all works out. We all have seasons in life of crazy. It's going to happen. Hopefully some of these things will help you with how to deal with crazy and be a little bit less stressed. But also, talk to your coach about it too. If there's things going on in your life, they might have some suggestions for you aside from the things that we talked about that are going to help you, not only in your health journey, but just in life, to be able to be where you feel successful and you're fulfilled and you can get to that point where you want to be. So hopefully you guys will take a little bit of time. I know we didn't get to go through every single blank and line in here, but I just encourage you to take some time this week and take some quiet time, continue writing and figuring out all the things that you want and how you want to get there, the things that you're going to do to get there. Fill out a structural tension chart, rip it out of the page if you want, hang it up in your bathroom, just like you did at the beginning with your goals. And let's do our part to get there. I posted something last night, said don't let the things that you can't do keep us from the things that we can do. There are some things that we can do. And so sometimes we get crippled by the things that we can't do, and we just think that we're done, like, okay, I can't do anything. So we freeze and we don't do anything. And so I just encourage you to do what you can do based on where you're at right now, and reach out to the people that love you, and maybe you need to make some changes for the better. So hope this was helpful for you guys today, and thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week.